Well, we had a fairly nice day in the Northeast, although there were clouds in the mid-Atlantic states, showers, thunderstorms, and severe weather tonight across much of the southern plains into the middle Mississippi Valley. We are on our way to the Memorial Day holiday weekend, and we're going to discuss all that and much more tonight on, you guessed it, the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Chaffee. For those of you who are new to the chat board, welcome. And new to the channel, Joe Rayo, my colleague, is taking a few well deserved days off. And I'm going to be soloing over the next 5 or 6 days. Although Joe might be in one or two of those shows, depending on where he is and his schedule and what kind of internet access he has. So, a couple of notes from the top. If I descended into tech hell all the way down to the bottom, I have clawed my way up, and I am now just within reach of the top. So everything appears to be working. My website is accessible again to me, which was the most bizarre thing. But what happened was there was where the host server is. They got a uh, they got a new server and they migrated everything over, and some bugs showed up, including the fact that if I tried to log into my website to put up a weather post, it would not let me. It locked me out. And I got to where I got these little windows where I'd be able to get in there for about a half an hour, and then I would be blown out in the middle of doing something. So that issue is solved. The YouTube mostly solved. We even figured out that audio echo and where it was coming from. So hopefully that will go away and never come back. And I got my levels all back, so I'm thinking I'm sounding okay. If I'm not, you guys on the chat board just let me know, and I will make adjustments. But everything here says to me that I'm good. And as far as my weather app is concerned, that is the one remaining issue, the home page and the video page where you could watch the Joe and Joe Weather Show or Weather in 5 or any other videos I might put up. Those two pages are still not working. But if you go to the New Jersey, if you go to the drop down menu and you hit on New Jersey, I have put the videos there for now. So for the most part, like I said, I'm just within grasping at the top and climbing out. So I hope everybody had a nice day. The main focus ahead is the Memorial Day holiday weekend. We have been optimistic about that for the last week and a half, and we've been, as usual with these things, you get taken on a roller coaster ride with regards to what the models were doing, and we discussed the differences between the GFS and the European. And then last night, the European looked like it was going the GFS's way, and I thought, oh, good Lord, no, not that. But thankfully, they all kind of lined up the same. So I think we're going to be fine. I think the rain for Friday the rain on showers and thunderstorms on Friday in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states will be long gone by Saturday morning. So it'll be just a question of whether there will be some leftover clouds early in the day that'll gradually give way to sunshine. And I think Sunday and Monday look fine. There are going to be the usual daytime issues regarding wind direction and sea breeze, especially along the coast. But I think we're going to have a fine weekend. And the other thing that I think is important is the fact that when we finish with the holiday weekend and we get through the first day or two of June, after that, it does look like we're going to be going back to a blocky, coolish pattern in the eastern part of the U.S. It doesn't mean it's going to be like that every single day, obviously, and we're at a time of year where even in a pattern where it's going to be cool most of the time, you will get warm ups in between air mass changes. They'll just be very short. There might only be for a day, maybe a day or two, but it does look that way as far as what we saw on the teleconnections and everything else that we looked at during this afternoon with the models. So on that particular note, I think we can go ahead and get started. I'm going to go to my new favorite satellite, which is we're going to use this probably for the rest of the summer and into the fall, as long as we've got thunderstorms that we're going to be dealing with. We might as well uh, use the one where we can actually see the lightning flashes on it, and I think that's at least a good indication of where how these storms are developing and and so on. Just give me a minute here. I'm just trying to fix this. There we go. Now we got it. And there you have it. There's the satellite loop. I one of the issues for today was the fact that we have all that tropical moisture. There was actually an identifiable little low-level swirl that moved northward through the Gulf of Mexico and made its way inland. Let me just get my little video picture out of the way here so it looks a little better. There you go. This is a 12-hour frame. I'm going to see if I can extend these frames out, go out to 36 frames so we can go a bit longer. So as a result, there were clouds around, particularly down in southern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, down into Virginia, where it's still heavily overcast there. But the areas to the north thinned out nicely, and there was a fair amount of sunshine. And even further north, going up into upstate New York and New England, it was a pretty nice day. And now, of course, we're starting to deal with is an onshore flow and the high in Nova Scotia. And normally those flows can be problematic, but sometimes they're not. In this particular case, it's not too problematic in that, yeah, there'll probably be some clouds that'll develop overnight into the morning hours, especially along the coast. Sometimes they even develop in inland areas, but once we get past, say, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, they should burn off, and we'll get some sunshine for tomorrow. And even on Thursday, I'm not that sour on the idea that we could have a halfway decent day, depending on how the clouds set up. You see the flashes of lightning along the North Carolina coast there in northeastern North Carolina from some thunderstorms that ran through in the last couple of hours. They're still pretty active, though, down in Georgia. There's actually a fairly strong cell that's moving rapidly northward. Looks like if it keeps moving northward, I'm going to be destined for that one. And as we head over to the wider view, just going to make sure you guys are seeing everything, and you are, which is good. Okay, and not seeing any negative messages, and that's good. So let's go back to that satellite view. And there you have it on the U.S. Now we're starting. Now, if you look back across Alabama, particularly in Mississippi, Louisiana, and back through west central Texas, you're seeing what appears to be a line of thunderstorms that is moving eastward. There's also a batch of thunderstorms that just came out of New Mexico, moving into West Texas. This is the weather system that's going to come in for Friday, and that is going to be a cold. It is going to be a cold front. It is going to produce some showers and thunderstorms. I think there's an outside chance we could see some severe weather risk. It's not the most ideal setup for severe weather, but nonetheless, I think there's enough in the upper atmosphere to set it off in a few places, maybe isolated severe thunderstorms in the northeast and mid-Atlantic states, and even points further south too, down into the southeast. But after that, it should move out. The idea that this was going to just cut off and then drift eastward and offshore over the weekend was, in my view, it was a little bit far-fetched considering the fact that the pressure patterns in the North Atlantic were not suggestive of that happening, and also the pressure patterns out in the East Pacific were not supportive of that particular idea. Some of the cutoff is probably going to be there for a short time, but it does look like this northern feature that we talked about yesterday coming down out of Canada is going to be able to pick it up and carry it away to the northeast. So on the radar at the moment, I'm just giving it a quick refresh here so that we have the latest. And in the east, you see it's pretty quiet. A little bit of activity there off the mid-Atlantic coast. Running into Texas, here's where we have a number of severe thunderstorm warnings. Very busy here. We even have a tornado warning that's just popped up in northwest Texas, south of Amarillo. And That's all moving to the east, and there are some storms that look like they're going north of Dallas-Fort Worth at the moment, and also through parts of southern Oklahoma. Some big cells with heavy rain in southwestern Louisiana, and further east, there's this east-west band from southern Arkansas into northern Mississippi and northern Alabama. Looks like they just had some storms go through Birmingham, and then of course that area in South Georgia that is moving northward, and it's south of Atlanta at the moment by a fair distance. But we'll see if that holds together as we go through the evening hours and through the overnight hours. We had a lot of rain here, by the way, in North Georgia. We had a good soaking rain, which we really could use. We had about 8 or 9 days in a row of just beautiful weather here. It was really spectacular. Blue skies and sunshine just about all day long. Nice cool nights down in the 50s and even the 40s some instances. But now we've got a little bit of humidity going here with some of this tropical air that's down in the Gulf states. But it's not. I would not regard it as uncomfortable. And the sun came out today after the rain that we had last night. The Storm Prediction Center, 2 severe thunderstorm watches are at work right now. It's 7:11 Eastern Time. So, of course, if you're watching this on a replay, remember to go to weather.gov to see what's going on in real time, and click on your local geography and your local National Weather Service forecast office, and you can make sure you have the latest weather information. So as I said, there's these 2 watches that are going. They have an enhanced risk of severe weather covering much of central and northeast Texas into southern Oklahoma, and the marginal risk extends all the way east across the Gulf states and along the southeast coast. Much of what's on the southeast coast has played itself out for the time being. We saw that activity that's still going on from Georgia westward, so we still have that to deal with. And the hazards tonight, as we look at what's going on, we've got flash flood watches up for parts of central Oklahoma, southeast Kansas, and also for northeastern Texas and northwestern Louisiana. And you can see in the pink or the salmon color, those are all severe thunderstorm watches. And in the purple, you've got red flag warnings for the excessive dry conditions that continue in the southwest. Over the next couple of days, there's no serious severe weather risk being indicated by the Storm Prediction Center. We have marginal risk. This is for Wednesday into Thursday. We have a marginal risk of severe weather that is forecast from the central Gulf states and the coastal bend of Texas northward through the Ohio Valley up to the lower Great Lakes. And as you can see in the northeast and mid-Atlantic, the northern half of the mid-Atlantic anyway, no thunderstorms are being forecast. Again, this is Wednesday into Thursday. Thursday into Friday, we're seeing marginal risk shifting eastward into Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and into parts of South Carolina. Again, this would be more along the lines of isolated severe thunderstorms. I kind of look at it like this. If you've got sorry about that. My audio just dropped out for a moment. The way I look at it is if you've got a marginal risk of severe weather, that usually means there are the possibility of severe thunderstorms, but they should be isolated in nature or widely scattered. If you've got a slight risk, that's when you start to get into the possibility where you could see clusters of severe thunderstorms or even some small broken line segments of thunderstorms. Push it into enhanced and beyond, and that's when you're dealing with maybe wholesale squall lines that form and move eastward and have some real strength to them. Not that you can't get that in slight risk, but certainly when you have enhanced risk, the chances are better. The forecast period that we would look at is Friday into Saturday. That's the time frame of the next cold front when it moves into the east. And again, I think we'll probably see maybe see a marginal risk of severe weather being indicated by the Storm Prediction Center over a fairly broad area, and they don't have anything indicated in their long range. Rainfall over the next 7 days, we're looking at rainfall amounts of generally under a half an inch, in fact, even under a quarter of an inch in the coastal plain from Maine down to New Jersey, coastal New Jersey, but then just go inland and you start to see some bigger amounts, half to three quarters of an inch to an inch across Pennsylvania. down into West Virginia and Virginia, and of course the heavy rains in the lower Ohio Valley, and particularly down along the Gulf Coast, where we're looking at least several inches of rain over the next week. And through the northern plains, an inch and a half to some pockets of 2.5 inches being forecast. And that precip extends back across Wyoming and into Montana, lightens up in the Pacific Northwest, and still totally dry in most of California, southern Nevada, southern Utah, most of Colorado. That light green is we're talking about 0.01 inches of rain. So you really have to go. You could pretty much say that most of those states are going to see very little rain over the next 7 days. Hardly anything in New Mexico, and not a raindrop in the state of Arizona. So let's take a look at the upper air and see what it has to say as far as our weather is concerned. And we'll start with the U.S. view. And you'll notice that here we are on Tuesday afternoon, nice ridge off the southeast coast. You've got this flow coming out of the Gulf of Mexico that is bringing moisture, plus you've got this deep trough that is just to its west with a cutoff low there in eastern Colorado. It's another situation, by the way, that some of that precip out here is going to fall as snow in some of the higher mountain areas. But it's not like it's going to snow again big in Denver like it did earlier this week. Well, that is going to start moving eastward, and as it does so, the worry was that cutoff would separate completely from the northern jet. And if you notice, that northern trough has caught it. It's actually caught it a little faster than advertised, and there you have actually another cutoff that forms just north of Minnesota that supports the cause of this thing just getting they phase together. The upper low weakens and moves away out to the east, and goodbye. This is the scenario that the GFS was just nowhere near showing. It showed it initially last week, and then it went on this roller coaster ride with separating the cutoff and keeping the northern jet far enough north where it would just eventually wind up in a no man's land, which is what we didn't want to see. But now, and the European is the same way, the Canadian is the same way. There's some minor differences, but I think the bottom line is that we're back to where we were before the roller coaster ride began, and this is going to just move on through. Here's your trough for Friday evening. It's not too shabby a trough. It's lagging a little bit to the west, but I think it may be enough, as I said, that we could see the severe weather. Also, the southern part of this trough has got a little bit of strength to it as well. So perhaps we could wind up, I mean, I'm just guessing at this point off the top of my head, but we could wind up with a large area of risk like I just drew. And perhaps the southern part of the area, we might see a little bit of a slight risk. So we'll let SPC do their job, which they do very well, and leave it at that. And then, of course, once that goes by, it's a ridge that builds into the eastern part of the U.S. and builds rather strongly as we move through the middle part of next week. That's a nice-looking upper high there by the time we get to Tuesday. The only thing that I would just be a little cautious about, and this only has to do with respect to temperatures for the Northeast, is if there's some kind of backdoor front. Sometimes when you get these big ridges like this aloft and then you look at the surface, the actual surface high is to your north. And as a result, you wind up with more of a northeast wind, and a little bit of a backdoor comes down, and all it really does is just shift the wind around, and the northeast wind will keep it cooler. But the ridge is so strong that I got to believe that it won't make any difference as far as sky conditions. I think sky conditions should be fine. And now, after the middle of next week, that ridge is going to start breaking down, and we're going to see a change in the whole flavor. Look at that deep trough that the model brings down out of Canada and into the eastern part of the United States. That is fairly exceptional for June. And by the way, once again, the model late this afternoon is picking up on, and this is over a week away, and I just want to explain and emphasize that we just went through a stretch for the last 2 weeks where the GFS was showing a hurricane moving out of the Caribbean and up into the Gulf of Mexico. going into Florida, going into Louisiana, or doing any one of a number of different things. And obviously, that did not happen. So I've said many times, until it starts to show up, until we see the model progress inside the 7-day time range and does it in a very consistent basis, do we start to take things seriously. But this is why it's going to develop what it does, and that whole area of blue in the Gulf of Mexico represents uh, lower than normal pressures in the Gulf of Mexico, and out of that we get a system that develops, and then on this particular run, because of that deep trough coming down into the Great Lakes, it just lifts it right up just offshore and moves it right up the coast. I got a chuckle out of it when I looked at it on the map. The wider view of this is going to the North America view, so you can get a flavor for the overall pattern. You'll notice this is on day 9, but keep your eye on watch the area over Greenland, and you'll see what happens. This is on Friday of this week, so this whole area here, right up in here, there's some higher than normal pressures from Greenland west. I'm sorry, from Greenland east, but lower than normal pressure from the Davis Strait on down into eastern Canada. There's our trough that moves through on Friday. It goes out. Now we have the big ridge that builds in the east. But over Greenland, you're going to see pressures get higher and higher as that area goes from blue to brown. So that is telling us that we are getting the North Atlantic oscillation to go negative. The other part of this equation is the Pacific North America pattern index, and I'll show you the charts in a moment. But initially, the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, is negative. So you have a trough in the west. So you can have a negative NAO, but if you have it with a negative PNA, especially when you get into the summer months, that actually can mean warm weather in the east, because the NAO, the higher pressures in the North Atlantic, are not sufficiently strong enough to push the troughing down far enough south so that you can get the ridge out of the way. Well, guess what? That's going to happen. The ridge does get out of the way. Those higher pressures eventually do break that ridge down the middle of next week. Wednesday is June 1st. And there you have the transition over into trough in the east. And the other change is that in the west, you start to see less troughing there in the west to allow for that block to work. In fact, if this is correct, and it's probably not going to be correct in this fashion, but all of this area up to the north is higher than normal pressures. So the jet stream is going to be displaced pretty far south of normal for the beginning of June. And you've got this big wrapped up upper low over Lake Winnipeg. So it's a coolish pattern, depending on ultimately how the trough sets up. But again, you get those warmish days next week. And if the models are correct, you go to this. And this will be a not so warmish pattern going forward. Fortunately, I don't see anything that suggests at the moment that even if we get into some sort of blocky pattern, that we're dealing with cutoffs. The jet that's displaced to the south is so strong that weather systems are likely to just move along, which is a good thing. So we're not going to necessarily get stuck in doom and gloom type weather in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. It'll be interesting to see if this upper low is real and drops down the way it does, because that's probably going to be a severe weather trigger. That's another thing in a situation like this, this time of year. Those areas that are closest to where the trough is, you're probably going to wind up with several rather solid severe weather setups going forward. So here's what the PNA looks like, and you'll notice that we're going negative right now. Which is perfect timing for the Memorial Day weekend, because that allows the weather system that's coming into the east to move along. And not only that, but by staying negative into June 1st, you're also going to allow that ridge to build in the eastern part of the United States. Then it starts to trend higher. It doesn't go positive or it doesn't even get to the neutral line, but it does trend higher off those lows toward the end of the forecast period. And here's the NAO, which is, and this has been fairly consistent in its forecast for days now. We're at the peak plus two standard deviations from the mean. It's going to crash to neutral by the end of the month and then go negative after that as we go into the first, uh, at least the first 5 or 6 days of the month of June. And this is based off of the ensemble forecast of the GFS from last night. We could take a look at the European and see what that does, and then we'll go to the GFS surface, and you can get the good laugh that I got with respect to the tropical system. So just running the European back, and here too, as we look at this, so here we are for Tuesday. We've got that ridge off the East Coast. There's that cutoff in Missouri. The northern trough is a little structured a little differently on the European than the GFS, but it is there. The northern part of this jet on the European is a little less pronounced in the GFS, but there's enough of it there that it just opens up that cutoff low, moves it to the east, and then it's a little slower in getting it out of the way, but it does eventually uh, go away. And Sunday and Monday. Look, worst case scenario is that if things slow down a little bit, maybe you have some issues early on Saturday before weather improves. But you certainly should have no problems, I think, for Sunday and Monday for sure. And I really tend to think that overall we may wind up uh, with a decent Saturday if things go according to plan. Okay, back to we'll go back to the full U.S. view, and just going to check my levels here. Okay, everything is good. Full U.S. view, and we'll look at. Since I have the European up, we can take a look at this. Now, remember what you're seeing here as far as This is not radar. Okay, this is not the radar. This is actual precip, total precip, and you have the scale there on the side. Okay, so you could have, for example, here we go. This is Saturday morning at 7 a.m. It's showing rain in southeastern New England, but that could have occurred, say, at two. This is the period from uh, 3 hours, so it could have very well occurred very early in the period, and then the remaining hour or two winds up being dry. Now, there's a lagging trough behind it on the European that comes through Saturday afternoon, and that's why you see those showers there. I don't know if that's real or not. The GFS suggests that it's not. The Europeans got a little bit of a different structure, so it does, again, it lags the trough behind a bit. But that would be worst case scenario. And then here we go for Sunday and Monday. You're dry. And going into next week with that big high building, eventually the high settles down in Virginia. Uh, I think we probably could have a couple of days where it's very warm. Tuesday and Wednesday of next week could turn out to be quite warm indeed. There's just a yeah, you can barely find it. A little bit of a backdoor there on a Tuesday night that comes down from New England. It's weak, turns the isobars more northwest or northwest, but I don't think that makes a big difference. And then as the ridge starts to break down, there's your developing system. Even the European had. Now this is interesting. The European actually does this time around, unlike last time. The European does have something. So that's like a checkbox that maybe uh, maybe this one might have some. There might be some reality attached to this. We'll see. But the European is showing something coming out from the Southwest Gulf and moving northward. Of course it's further west than what the GFS has, but no matter. It does have something there. So that's that's something that should be considered in terms of whether this thing is real or not. Now here we have the GFS, and I'm going to switch to the radar view because that'll be more useful as far as precip and matching it up to the time. So let's roll back. Just give it a moment there. Okay, come on. Come on. Now we're got to Friday. Now we get to Thursday. Now we get to Wednesday. Okay, so here we are at tonight. There's all that action in the Central Plains down into Texas, where the severe weather with the enhanced risk. You can see the radar view showing some pretty big thunderstorms, especially overnight moving across eastern Texas, and rains up into Indiana, Illinois. Of course, we're fine here in the east. The high over Nova Scotia. It's far enough south that, again, I don't think the onshore flow should be a big problem. We're going to hold on to that to Thursday when the winds turn more southeast and south. And then here comes the cold front for Friday. Showers and storms late in the day on Friday. You see that the model does generate some bigger cells from central New Jersey down into as far south as South Carolina. Then here's Saturday morning. So the main rain is out to the east. There's a little bit of lagging activity up in New York State. That's that secondary trough there. So the GFS has it much weaker that comes through. We'll have to see if that's real or not. But again, if that winds up being correct, most of the day should be fine. And no problems for Sunday into Monday. And it's nothing but high pressure going forward. Notice the total lack of rainfall into Thursday of next week. We're good. And now here comes this system that the model picked up on. Uh, it actually doesn't have it. Actually, on this run, it didn't have it. It had it on the earlier run. It had it on the 12Z run. So let's go back and look at that. Let's go back at the 12Z run. So here we go. On the 12Z run, on day 10, it has it coming out of the Caribbean, and you saw what the European had, having it further west, and it's hooking up with a trough that's dropping down into the Great Lakes, as we said, and of course, naturally, it runs it right up the East Coast as a wrapped up Category 1 hurricane moving rapidly on northward into Maine and eastern Canada. So again, it's there. The European has it, so maybe there's some reality to this. Maybe there's a little bit of value to it, but we're not going to get into it too much until we see it inside the 7-day time frame. I just want to look at the Western Atlantic view and see how it just kind of starts developing there in the Northwest Caribbean, comes over Cuba on this run and goes east, just over southeast Florida, and then skimming the coast all the way up. The upper air is something I'd be a little more interested in, and the fact that you've got all that large area of lower than normal pressures is evident on both models. It doesn't really appear until after the weekend is going by. And by the way, we do have the model developing something on the Pacific side in 72 hours. You see it there, and it actually takes it northward up into Mexico. So the Pacific side may wind up with its first system. I'm going to just check the Hurricane Center. I'm just going to check the Hurricane Center to see if they mention it on the outlook for on the Pacific. We'll bring up the tropical weather outlook. Obviously, nothing in the Atlantic. And on the Pacific side, yeah, actually they do. They have two X's here, one way out, unfavorable for development for the system further east. On this one, go to the day 5 because they do have a 70% probability of development, and tropical depression is likely to form late this week or this weekend when the system while the system moves west northwest or northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. So the model's showing it. The Hurricane Center is on top of it, and again, it is on the Pacific side, but based on what we saw that on the models, it looked like it wanted to go toward the coast of Mexico, given the way the upper flow is. So that I think. Hold on, let me bring myself up full. There I go. And now I can plop up on the chat board. See, I have a super chat hit. Let's 2 super chat hits. JZ Videography, thank you so much for hitting super chat. It's going quite well. Thank you. I'm getting out of tech hell. Here's how's the air show over Jones Beach looking this weekend, especially Sunday. I think you're going to be fine for Sunday. No issues on Sunday. Again, for Saturday, um, with that secondary trough coming through, is there going to be a stray shower or not? I don't know. That we'll probably get into over the next day or two. But for now, I'm going to lean optimistic that we should be okay. And there's another super chat hit, which unfortunately, see if I can't see it. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Leon Probitsky. Thank you, Leon. Most appreciated for hitting a super chat as the hippos dance away in the water. So yeah, David, I think, the other issue on Saturday morning early is whether there's leftover clouds or not. It might be one of those days where after the front goes by, you wind up with broken clouds and breaks of sun that will go for a little while, and then maybe as that upper trough swings southeastward, you're going to see some additional cloud development and maybe another chance for a shower. Just scanning here. Chat board and see if there's any questions or other important comments, even non-important comments. No comments at all. I enjoy the fact that everybody has a good time and gets involved in the conversation. And if you're new to the channel, if you click on the Joe and Joe logo on the screen, you can immediately subscribe to my YouTube channel with ease. And you'll get notifications. If you set your notifications, you'll know every time the Joe and Joe Weather Show is on, which is usually. But we have a varied, we try to stick to a regular schedule, but life does get in the way. And as a result, sometimes we do move the show around, but we try to give everybody ample notice. So while Joe is away, I'm going to come on at 7 rather than at 7:30 because I get tired and then I get sleepy after 8 or 9 o'clock. So this is good for me, and we'll get the show done. So usually we're on at 7:30 Monday through Thursday. Sunday mornings we're on at 11 a.m. Friday and Saturdays, so we usually take off for a couple of days so we can get a little bit of a mental break, unless there's a storm going on, in which case we do come on Friday and Saturday and cover that. So what is the cause of the lack of rain in the Southwest? Is it a big high that won't move or something else in play? One of the things, Johnny Quest, that's a problem in this pattern in the Pacific is the fact that it's been westerly, but all the storm systems, the strongest part of the jet is up in the northwest. So you get these storms that have been coming into the Pacific Northwest, and then they go inland, and then they drop southeastward into the Rockies. So they completely evade or avoid, but maybe evade is the better word, the southwestern part of the U.S. And this has been very consistent for many months now, and it's somewhat typical of La Nina patterns. So until until that changes, it's just going to stay bone dry. And of course, they're going into their dry season now anyway, until they get to the monsoon season in August, where you start to get the moisture, tropical Pacific moisture coming up, and sometimes they can get some decent rains out of that. Or maybe the rare Pacific hurricane that moves inland and then all its moisture gets pushed up into the Southwest. That may be something that those folks would have to hope for as far as getting any kind of significant rain is concerned. The problem is that the flash flood threshold there is so low because the ground is basically baked to concrete, so the water just runs off almost immediately, and you wind up with some serious flash flooding that could occur in the Southwest. They might only get an inch or so of rain out of it, but then all of a sudden, there's water all over the place because it has absolutely no place to go. So, I guess on that note, we can wrap up the show tonight. Thanks everybody for being here on this Tuesday, the 24th of May, 2022, and we'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow night. I think I'm alone. So I will be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Christina Pedia said, I made homemade chicken soup for dinner. Used Oh, very good. Actually, I've been doing this for a while, and it's amazing how the soup tastes. I may actually have some now that you put the bug in my head. So I made a pot of chicken soup about 8 or 9, 10 days ago, and I put obviously you put chicken in chicken soup, and I put potatoes. I put a sweet onion in there, carrots, celery, and a little salt. I kind of have to take it easy with the spices these days. So, so what I do is after the initial cooking, and I'll eat the soup meat. I'll make a sandwich out of it or something. Uh, so after the initial time, I add I'll put it in the fridge and then I'll bring it out and then I'll add. Uh, I added, for example, I added some. I had turkey thighs, so I put turkey thighs in there, and it gave it a nice turkey flavor. And then when that was done, I added another piece of chuck, and I put that in there. And also I freshened it up with additional carrots and a fresh onion and a fresh potato, and I also put a tomato in there as well, a whole tomato. Just drop it in, and it's amazing how how delicious now that soup. I mean, it was good to begin with, but now it's really flavorful. It has a slightly sweet taste to it because of the sweet onion. It's subtle. Yes, no, Bill, no peas. I'm not a fan of peas, so I don't do peas. Yeah, my problem with putting in the I could put the sage, the rosemary. I occasionally I have put dill in, but one time I put too much dill in there. Oh my God, it was awful. So you got to be careful with that. Parsley's good, absolutely. But I got to be a little careful as I'm trying to figure out what I can and can't eat because of my stomach issues with that I'm dealing with. But it compensates if I can't put in the kind of spices I like. I can certainly put the vegetables in and everything else, and it really is absolutely it really came out very well. And I threw some orzo and pasta, some orecchiette in there too, into the soup itself, and cooked the pasta in the soup, which is also awesome. Gaming wants 4364 wants me to check on the Alabama Thunderstorms. So we can certainly do that. We'll get the latest on what's going on there. The latest radar, I don't see any warnings that are up. So these are probably just regular thunderstorms with some strong cells in there. Some of them might be maybe borderline severe, but I don't see any severe thunderstorm warnings up. You can see it's that east-west band. That it's north of I-20 now and moving northward toward the Alabama Tennessee state line, and then that band extends westward through northern Mississippi and then continues into Arkansas. There's just a couple of stray cells scattered down to the south of that. So I think once that goes by, you should be mostly done, at least for the overnight hours, and you're probably going to wind up seeing some more firing up during the day on Wednesday. I know, Chuck, I'm getting you hungry. I actually had an early dinner because I made fried baked chicken, which is it's baked chicken, but I put I put breadcrumbs on it and bake it in the oven at a high temperature, 400 degrees, and it comes out nice and crispy. It's almost like fried chicken. I mean, fried chicken is my downfall. I really like it, but I can't eat it now. So this is the next best thing. Ah, yes, I think I'm going to have that bowl of soup. Okay, everybody, be well, stay safe, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.